Trump demands deep state accountability and sends a sharp warning to Pam Bondi. Blaze News The Mandate starts right now. Welcome in, everyone. I'm Jill Savage. It was a good weekend, joined by Editor-in-Chief Matthew Peterson.
Happy Monday. What a weekend, and what a Monday this has already turned out to be.
Yes, it's quite the day already. Let's welcome in DC Politics Editor Chris Bedford. How is your Monday going?
You know, it's almost like an intellect or thinking and mourning and emotion hangover. It's just the last 2 weeks have been so frenetic and so frantic and so busy and so sad and so hard and then there was a beautiful ceremony yesterday, a funeral, memorial, revival, whatever you want to call it, event, the historic event. And now today, it's like, can we slow down for a moment? But no, the White House wants to keep on going.
But no, we will be talking about Charlie Kirk and the memorial coming up in the show. But right now, deep state. Donald Trump is done waiting. He's blasting Pam Bondi and demanding that the DOJ finally bring justice against deep state operators like Comey, Schiff, and Letitia James. Trump posted on Truth Social, Pam, I have reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially, same old story as last time, all talk, no action, nothing is being done. What about Comey, Adam Shifty Shift, Letitia, 3 question marks. They're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done, Matt. So we saw a couple posts on Truth Social from Trump. So, one, he's like, all right, Pam, she's doing a great job. Now, Pam, all talk, no action. Like, what's happening right now?
Well, we don't know exactly. I mean, but let me just say this. I mean, there are, fake news reports that this was supposed to be sent to her personally. And I was surprised to hear some people who might know say that that was actually true. I don't know if it's true or not. Either way, he publicly came out and just addressed her and said, Pam, you need to do what I think a lot of the audience wants to happen. So that's very significant. And even though he afterwards, he said, she's doing a great job as Attorney General, but she needs some different nominees. Even though that happened, I think that, what he said there, it correlates with a lot of people are feeling about Pam Bondi and the DOJ since she came in. And, I think now is the time where some time has gone by, right? Everyone's had the benefit of the doubt. And there are people wondering, why more aggressive action hasn't been taken. And that being said, of course, there's a lot of great people in the Department of Justice. They've done a lot of incredible things, but there is a lingering question about Pam Bondi and her leadership there.
Well, there's more going on with the AGs, the state level, different things. Eastern District of Virginia is Eric Siebert, and Trump posted late Friday night that he withdrew the nomination of Eric Siebert as the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, Chris Bedford's neck of the woods. And he was, reliably informed that he received an unusually strong support of these 2 absolutely terrible sleazebag Democrat senators from the state of Virginia. He didn't quit. I fired him. Next time, go in as a Democrat, not as a Republican. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. Now, Chris, we are told that Siebert wouldn't go through and get some people on the docket, namely former FBI Director James Comey and Letitia James out of New York, the AG there. And Trump, to his credit, it looks like he's had enough. And he's like, all right, changes need to start being made now.
This is actually a good move, I think. And one of the things that is very white pilling about the whole move is that it shows he's paying attention. I mean, you're looking at these cases, and if you're an outsider, you're saying, it's easy to say, why doesn't Donald Trump do something? And that's the kind of thing he would have said in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. He would have sent out a tweet that would have said, prosecute Comey now, or something like that. Now, the president can't obviously order prosecutions, but his attorneys do work for the president. And when somebody's so obviously committed crimes, you can certainly wonder why they're dragging their feet. What makes this different from his first term is that you see him understanding who is in charge of this. And it's not someone it's an extremely powerful position that is not well known nationally. You don't often see it in the press. The U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, where I live. it's not something that's every day popping up. So this shows in the second term that there's a level of sophistication where they can say who's screwing with us, who's messing with us, who's dragging their feet. And it's not just some distant, amorphous, deep state blob that they can't quite understand or penetrate. It's, oh, well, here's a block point. There's one right here. Okay, where's the next one? Where's the next one? All right, who needs to go? Because if people aren't willing to lead the Army of the Potomac south, then they need to get replaced. You need new generals. And it's a good move by the president. And it also just shows, as I was talking with some folks who are well connected over this past weekend, that he is actively engaged not just in what isn't happening, but in why it's not happening and possible solutions to make it happen.
Yeah, and Trump is going out there saying that justice must be served now. So, Matt, when we look at this, what do we want to see from Bondi and the DOJ moving forward? I mean, there's been a lot of talk here, as Trump has saying. So, what is the action that we want to see?
Well, yeah, so there's a lot of action we want to see, but first to the talk. I mean, there's been a lot of talk, right? There's been a lot of talk from the very beginning. There was talk about Epstein and the binders full of nothing that were given to influencers, which is a bad idea to anger everyone in the press and tell them you're giving something and then not give them a whole bunch of nothing. And that wasn't a good move from the very beginning. There was talk about, hate crimes, very, very unfortunate hate speech she was talking about the other day. That was awful. I think there was she was rightly pilloried for that. And so now you have the fact that at the end of the day, after all this time, after coming into office the second time, you want to see people actually prosecuted for crimes. So the first thing that he talks about there is what is on most people's minds when they think about what they want to see prosecuted from the last, 5-6 years. And there's a whole lot more besides that. There's a number of investigations into the wrongdoing of the Biden administration and even what happened previous to that people want to get to the bottom of. They want to see full prosecution to the extent that it makes sense given the current laws on the books. And I think this is more of a question of, is the organization there and the prioritization there within the Department of Justice to get all these things done? To be fair, there's a lot of things that need doing, and the Department of Justice is involved in a lot of work daily that has nothing to do with the past. It has to do with the present and the future. So, you can give her some room, but she's had some room now, and you want to see a prioritized action list of all the people and all the investigations that are most actionable from the past. I mean, that's what Trump is talking about. I think that's the first thing that a lot of people wanted to see when Trump took office.
So, Chris, building on that, of course, the DOJ oversees the FBI. So if we can just kind of look at the entity as a whole, how do we assess this moving forward?
I mean, the DOJ has just not covered itself in glory over these past few months. There's have not been a lot of weak links in the Trump administration that Matt just went through a great list of them there that have caused not just things not getting done, but public embarrassments, things that the administration has had to figure out. I mean, if you're the president's appointee and the president in his first few months has to end up defending himself and you and doing work because of something you did, then you're doing a poor job. And the thing about Pam is that Pam Bondi, she has close allies. She rode for a long time with Susie Wiles, who's an extremely powerful and extremely effective chief of staff to the president, which is an extremely difficult role to be a senior advisor of in any sort, or manager, or lawyer, or accountant, or anyone for this president, because he's so hands-on. It's not even easy to be his architect or groundskeeper. He's the kind of guy who's so hands-on and is changing things on you, doing his own communications, doing his own legal tweets about what should happen, and tweeting what maybe was supposed to be a text message or sending it out in truth so publicly. I know he's not easy, but Susie Wiles, who has done a great job for him, backs her very closely. So I think right now it's going to take more, but we're starting to finally get to a point where it's fairly clear that if she doesn't start putting some wins on the board and catching up with people like Tulsi Gabbard and others who were very actively dismantling the deep state, then she's going to her days will be numbered.
Well, yeah, as Matt always says, flying close to the sun, you have to be careful when you're doing that.
Yeah, when you fly close to the sun, King, you got to be careful. Fly close to the sun. But Susie Wiles is close to the sun. She is someone who is very effective, and she is a great ally of Bondi. But here's the problem with Bondi. Bondi has great people in the White House who care about what DOJ is doing, like Stephen Miller, right, who understands the agenda and is pushing it forward. And she has some great people underneath her, like Harmeet Dillon, who's doing an incredible job using civil rights law in the way that most Americans think it should be used, going after the colleges for all this racial stuff. But in the middle of those people underneath her and the people above her is Pam, and she just has not inspired confidence that she's internalized the agenda. I don't think she's a bad person, but it does not seem over and over again like she's internalized this. And again, I think for a lot of people, it's just, look, we don't have time if it's not working out. We only have a year here to really get things done, and we need to put the right people in the right positions. So, I mean, I think that question is very serious, and so is the question about Cash's leadership as well. Nothing against Cash, but people are questioning, are we being effective in our job? Are we getting things done with the speed that we need to in both of these agencies?
All right, Chris, we'll give you the last word. Donald Trump's out there. He's naming names, right? We see Comey, Schiff, Letitia James, friend of the show, Brianna Morello. She writes something on X every day. She'll it's like the Dan Bongino way where he used to say Joe Biden was the worst president, right? The date. So she goes out there and she puts the date down. Today is September 22nd, and no one from the Biden administration has still been arrested, right? How many more days are we going to have to see this? Because we know these are bad actors. How long is this going to go on?
Oh, I think you don't want to move too quickly. You really don't. Unlike with the Biden administration came in with the benefit of an FBI and Department of Justice that had been built over decades to back them, to do their bidding, to know what to do. It's not like Joe Biden was in the Oval Office leaning into the microphone and saying, "Execute Order 66." The people knew what to do, and they were ready to go, and they were backed by their inside forces. They have to clean a lot of house. This is a hostile takeover of the federal government, and they need to build an airtight case, because even when you do have airtight cases in Washington, D.C. and Northern Virginia, Democrats are allowed to walk. We've seen this over and over and over again. So they need to be careful. They need to move slowly. And I would rather see convictions than perp walks at this point. That's where I am. And it's I've always been thought it's rather unlikely we'd see many perp walks, but I actually think it's more likely now than ever. But it doesn't need to happen tomorrow. It just needs to end in a conviction.
The man, he's the reasonable one out there in Washington, D.C., because all I want for Christmas is perp walks. That's it. It's not that hard, guys. Come on. We can get convictions. I want those too. Chris Bedford, much more reasonable, thinking this whole thing through. But come on. Bedford.
Jail is one thing, but I'm hoping for prison.
Yeah, there's a difference, Bedford. There's a difference.
Oh, I know.
All right. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks so much.
See you then.
When we come back, we will talk with Eric Teetsel. We'll get his thoughts on Charlie Kirk, the memorial. We'll break it all down next. Well, I want to say thank you for watching and listening to the show, because we know that BlazeTV exists only because people like you refuse to settle for all of the legacy media, all the watered down coverage and endless spin. And we know that this is not about one voice or one company. It's about a movement of people who refuse to sit on the sidelines. And we all know that we need to carry this mission forward. So when you subscribe, you're not just supporting a show, you're making sure that the truth has a platform for today and the next generation. So join BlazeTV today at blazetv.com/BNT and get $20 off right now. You can get it as low as $8 a month with the annual plan, and you can be a part of shaping the future. It's blazetv.com/BNT.
That young man. On the cross, our Savior said, "Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do." That man I forgive him. I forgive him because it was what Christ did and is what Charlie would do. The answer to hate is not hate. The answer we know from the gospel is love, and always love. Love for our enemies and love for those who persecute us.
Yesterday, a memorial for Charlie Kirk filled State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona to capacity as supporters and friends and family and colleagues, they all gathered to honor his life. And the ceremony opened with powerful evangelical worship as prayer and communion echoed through the stadium, uniting everyone in faith, remembrance, and love. Joining us now is Eric Teetsel. He's the CEO for Center for Renewing America. So, Eric, it's so good to see you. Yesterday it was such a powerful day. What stood out to you?
Thank you for having me. You're right. It's almost hard to put into words what happened yesterday. I'm not the first person to remark that it is truly unlike anything I have ever seen or experienced. Obviously, there were many moments of poignant and powerful reflection. I think about the fact that you heard clear gospel presentations from multiple speakers, including elected officials and government leaders. Marco Rubio, in particular, stands out to me. We heard a beautiful recitation of the gospel from Frank Turek, a Christian apologist. Maybe one of the smaller things that I noticed that I think is a big deal and maybe a sign of what's changing in the church and in our country was the fact that you had 4 or 5 of the largest Christian worship music artists on the planet leading worship for this event. They weren't afraid. They weren't worried about the whispers they would get back in the studios in the corporate headquarters in Nashville. They wanted to be there. They wanted to participate, and they did. That's new. That's not how I grew up learning to think about, what we can expect from leaders in the church. And it's a sign to me that something really neat is happening.
Eric, it's great to have you on and to talk about this today. I think one of the big themes that came out of this was really two sides of the coin. On the one hand, Erica speaking about forgiveness, forgiving the murderer, the assassin. And on the other hand, Trump talking about justice. We should roll that clip here.
He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent. And I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erica. But now Erica can talk to me and the whole group, and maybe they can convince me that that's not right, but I can't stand my opponent.
Now, there's a lot of commentators out there on the left who are saying, look, this is a contradiction. These two people are at odds. And, CNN had a historian saying, oh, gosh, I sure hope they take Erica's way. That's the high road. And Trump is sort of the antithetical low road. What do you take away from this?
Well, there's no one like President Trump. That's for sure. And you got to give the guy credit for having a sense of humor, even in a moment like that. But I will also say that whether or not he even realized it, I think what he's articulating is a truth and an important biblical truth, which is that forgiveness is a very personal and spiritual thing. But he is an agent of the state, and governments are ordained by God for a reason, and it is to do justice. So it is altogether right and proper and incredible that Charlie Kirk's widow would in that moment muster through the power of the Holy Spirit the love and the mercy and the compassion to say those words of forgiveness. And it is altogether right that the President of the United States would say that he is going to wield a sword of justice to someone who did a grave injustice.
And things are obviously changing throughout the country. We can see that from yesterday. But when you look at how leftists view political violence, it says only 10% of Democrats are aware that Charlie Kirk's killer was left wing. And this represents the complete failure of legacy media out there to honestly inform its viewers. Eric, how do we go about making sense of this is the way that they still view the world? And I mean, even when we can just kind of see as clearly as we can that there are those on the left that are still like, you know what? No, they have no idea what's going on right now.
Well, first, let me say thank God for things like Blaze, alternative sources of truth that can enable us to get what's really happening out there so that people have to grapple with reality. Thank God for Elon buying X, another platform to do the same, and many other entities out there who are telling the truth and are able to get right to the people to do so. I've often said I don't think you can hate the corporate media enough. And here's another example of exactly why. But the other dark reality here, and I think it's something we as a country absolutely have to finally grapple with, is that the idea of political violence as a necessity, in fact, as the only rational response to things that they call fascism, white supremacy, and patriarchy, is a norm in progressive thinking. This is what is taught in America's colleges and universities. It is what is written in the books that their scholars put out. That's hard, if not downright impossible, to reconcile with the American founding. It is incompatible with the values upon which our nation was built, Christian values, the values that Charlie Kirk was embodying, literally manifesting as he sat in a square in public, debating ideas in an earnest pursuit of what is true and good and beautiful. And they shot him in the midst of that, not as a deviation, but because that is exactly what you do when what you want is to enforce through power your view rather than pursue what is true and good for everyone. It's high time that we call a spade and start to root out this pernicious ideology.
Eric, one of the things that I took away, and I'm sure you took away from these last, terrible weeks in many ways, is actually inspirational. And I feel it myself. I think you feel it, and we all feel it on the right, which is that now it's time to work even harder. It's time to be like Charlie. It's time to take inspiration from his life and his witness and move forward with, absolute steel determination. And I think that that's happening across the country, especially among people who, are already in the fight and who knew him or were influenced by him. We all see this. But what do we do is the question that a lot of people are asking, right? And they've been asking this really since 2020. What do I do? I've seen this in the audience and people across the country since. And since Charlie was assassinated, I see people asking the same question. What do we do now? So you're sitting here with us. You run a Center for Renewing America. What do you tell? What do we do? What is the Center for America going to do?
Well, there's a lot that we can all do. And let me echo sentiments that were said over and over again, and rightly so, at the memorial. The first and most important thing we should do is pray. We have the awesome opportunity to talk to the creator and sustainer of the universe and to seek his guidance for what we should do, to ask him to work in our lives and the lives of others to make a difference. And that's where it all starts. It's the most important thing. Second thing we can do is what Charlie did. We can speak up. We can stand up and speak up and say what is true. Americans have been doing that more and more in recent years. We saw it with President Trump. We saw it during COVID, revelations about what was happening in our public schools and parents finally feeling emboldened. We've seen it in a response to the transgender madness with parents, especially dads, standing up to defend their daughters and their right to have private spaces and to have sports that are just for girls like them. That's all critical too. But I do public policy, as you said, at a think tank. And there are policies that we're going to pursue in light of these events with renewed vigor to try to root out these lies that have taken hold in America. I'll give you just a couple of examples. Higher education. We've known for a long time that our institutions of higher education in this country are hotbeds for ideas that defy everything that America stands for. They are brainwash centers for progressive ideology, and that is contrary to everything that we are supposed to be as a people. It's high time that we stop subsidizing that garbage. So we're going to call to eliminate all federal funding for all public institutions of higher education when it comes to student loans, Pell Grants, and all the rest. If the left wants to have training centers for their awful, pernicious ideology, then George Soros can fund it. But taxpayers shouldn't have to do it. Some other things that we can do include going after these networks of so-called nonprofit organizations and NGOs that both perpetuate these terrible ideas and in some cases outright fund violence like Antifa. The president's already called Antifa, rightly, a terrorist organization. That's going to have major implications for going after them. But we've got to dig deep and figure out exactly who is behind all of this violence and anti-American rhetoric and ensure that, again, they're not getting tax subsidies to undermine the roots of our country. Finally, I'll come back to the transgender issue. This has been a lie that has been promulgated largely through education systems, through the healthcare system, and yes, through government. We've got to stop. We got to stop funding all of the transgender surgeries and other research into this nonsense. And there's more that we can do. We can say that states who have so-called SOGI laws, sexual orientation and gender identity non-discrimination statutes, are ineligible for federal funding. If you're going to perpetuate this nonsense, then we're going to drop the hammer on you and say no more. Folks can read all about that. We actually just published our first paper on this evening at our website at americarenewing.com.
Great. Very interesting stuff. Very important stuff. Another question along these lines. Charlie Kirk is known because he went to the youth of America. I mean, he said, these kids are all going to grow up. I don't know about changing these people who are already set in their ways. I'm going to go after these younger kids and instead of waiting until they pay taxes, as someone said yesterday, right? The old thought was, well, we can't go to the campus. We can't reach them, right? We need to wait till they grow up and then they'll come around. And Charlie said, no, I'm going to go right after this group of college kids and I'm going to go right to the campus. And he did that very successfully. Obviously, he was a very strategic political thinker, but he specifically was going to college campuses and to younger people. When it comes to your look at the scene now and what you're trying to promote with the Center for Renewing America, are there any other groups to go to? I mean, because we won, right? We won the popular vote. That's true, but we need a big, beautiful majority coalition without bending any principle at all, without compromise. And how do we get that coalition in your view? Where else do we go?
Oh, great question, Matt. And you're right about Charlie. He didn't need to be swallowed by a whale to go preach to the Ninevites. He was willing to go, much to his credit. Similar to the president, President Trump has built a whole new political coalition that includes, blue collar Democrats, Black men, Hispanic men. All groups that Republicans for my entire life have been sort of scratching their heads wondering when, if ever, you could reach those folks. And they were able to do it. It just goes to show that you can't stamp out the truth forever. If you're willing to be bold, if you're willing to be creative, if you're willing to just be a normal person and show compassion and concern for your fellow man, there are willing ears to listen. The truth will prevail. I think for our purposes that the American church in particular has been asleep at the wheel for a very long time. Notions of third wayism and not wanting to sort of muddy the gospel by getting too political on issues, all of that has to go away and die, and not a moment too soon. Churches aren't supposed to be, first and foremost, political organizations, but the gospel, starting there and working out the ramifications of the gospel, inevitably has gospel implications. And for the people in the pulpit to recognize that what the lost, what the lonely, what the hurting need is truth that will actually speak to what's happening in their lives boldly and give them a sense of purpose and meaning and answers to the big questions of life. That's what we're here to do, to kick down the gates of hell on a mission of love and light. So that's one example I can think of a demographic that's ready and waiting, I think, to get off the sidelines and get in the game and make a big difference for America.
Eric Teetsel, I can't think of a better way to end a segment than that one. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you all.
Don't go anywhere. When we come back, the latest with Representative Cory Mills next. Well, it's time to share the arrows. We spend a lot of time talking about politics and culture, but we know there's so much noise and the battles and the craziness out there in the world. If you're a woman or there's somebody in your life that you care about, think about Share the Arrows. It's happening October 11th right here in Dallas, and it's hosted by BlazeTV's own Allie Beth Stuckey. And really, it's built to encourage and equip and speak truth into women who are trying to stand firm in today's world. And we need that now more than ever. So if you're craving real encouragement and biblical truth, then this is for you. If you're a man out there, you're a dad, husband, brother, you have a wife or a sister, somebody that needs this, then pay attention, because we know that our culture is pulling us the wrong way. And this is a chance to reset and get grounded in the truth. All the details and tickets are at sharethearrows.com. That's sharethearrows.com. Well, last week, Representative Cory Mills sided with the Democrats and 3 other Republicans to block a vote on Representative Ilhan Omar. Now, it was Representative Nancy Mace that called for that vote, and she's now looked into Mills's background, including some of the stories that we've broken here at Blaze Media and the mandate. And let's just say she woke up this morning and she wanted to share her thoughts about Mills with the world. So before we get into all of the tweets, MP, let's go through and just get everybody up to speed. If they missed the vote for Ilhan Omar, what happened?
Well, what Nancy wanted to do, what Congresswoman Mace wanted to do, is say, look, you said terrible things about Charlie Kirk. You've done terrible things your entire career. But these comments were so over the pale. She just keeps on going after Kirk in the wake of his death. And she wanted to strip her of her committee assignments. If you're in Congress, you become important by being assigned a committee and working on bills that come out of that committee. So the Republicans in this case, who really turned traitor on Mace and the rest of the Republican Party, they said, no, we don't want to censure her for her speech. Because it's a free speech issue. And Mills even said this is what Charlie would want, that somehow Charlie would have wanted not to strip Ilhan Omar of her committee assignments for being a terrible person and saying outrageous things that no one in Congress should be saying. And obviously, Congresswoman Mace took great offense to this, that people in her own party weren't voting with her. And she started to look into Congressman Mills's record.
And she started to see things the way that we see things around here. Let's go ahead and get to her first tweet. She said where she's beginning to think that nothing Cory Mills says is true. This guy has been parading himself around as some sort of U.S. Army Special Op, Covert Ranger, Sniper, James Bond 007, elite commando for years, and it's not even remotely close. He was an ambulance driver, mainly in the motor pool. Medics work hard to save lives. Wasn't that good enough? But instead, he fabricated his resume and stole stories from men who either gave their life for their country and can't speak now, or can't speak for themselves due to their injuries. Allegedly, total stolen valor. And this guy sits on the House Armed Services Committee. Unreal. And that post went along with this video that she put together.
I've spent over 20 years throughout the Middle East, obviously from the Iraq War in 2003 and all the way through. It was blown up twice. I was blown up twice, actually. I was blown up twice. It was a great experience.
Well, what we can tell you from all of our extensive reporting here at Blaze Media, including the 50-minute phone call with our own Peter Giedel, when Representative Cory Mills called him up one morning at about 7:30 a.m., chewing him out for the story that we were going to do on Who Married Him, the Radical Mufti. Well, Peter is a good journalist and kept asking more questions, Matt, and we now know that Cory Mills was not actually blown up twice in Iraq like he claimed to be. He told Peter Giedel that's correct when he asked if he was not involved in the second one. Now, his SUV was 50 meters down the road and around the corner from where the second IED explosion happened. The first one in March, he got a concussion. The second one in April, not there.
Yeah. So again, you see, it's not like he wasn't, over there doing stuff. Some of his own compadres from back in the day have said he did some noble things. But why do you have to embellish and lie about these things? And the more that you look into when you see, embellishing, exaggerating, and lying about things, or putting in a campaign ad, I was blown up twice overseas, when you had a concussion in one incident and the other incident is non-existent. I mean, that's troubling, right? And the more you dig, the more you sort of find, and it calls into question a whole lot of other things about the congressman.
Let's go full screen 3 because Nancy Mace put out a paragraph here from our Blaze article about stolen valor, and Mace put this on X. This might be my favorite Cory Mills stolen valor quote. I guess you don't care that I got a TBI, Cory. You got a TBI? Well, actually, no, Cory. Because Peter Giedel, when he was in this phone call with him, was asking him, okay, so you got a concussion, and he went through, and it's a traumatic brain injury is TBI. And Peter's like, oh, wow, you had a traumatic brain injury. And Cory goes, oh, well, no, I mean, I had a concussion, and I had to be there under supervision for the next 24 hours, but, I couldn't go out with my guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, like, why every time you ask a question does something have to be walked back? Every time you poke into any part of this guy's record, it turns out he's exaggerated. It's not just with the stolen valor story, although that's clearly what the Congresswoman was focusing on, because he does sit on the Armed Services Committee, and she is someone who is very familiar with the military community.
Yes, let's go ahead and go to full screen number 2. Nancy Mace had all of the tweets today that she put out there, and this one says, Cory Mills is now blowing me up over text. He even sent a photo saying that he was injured in a blast, showing blood on his pants. The blood, however, is of another soldier who was actually blown up, allegedly. Cory Mills is highly regarded and stolen valor. And this is the story that we have heard from numerous men that were over there with Cory Mills. Now, this is all part of that second incident, the second IED explosion. And Cory was there serving as a medic and doing good deeds, helping out his fellow men in time of need. Now, the blood on his leg was not blood from himself. It was as they were trying to get another man out to safety, and they accidentally apparently hit his head, and there was a gash on some man's head as they were getting him back into, I believe it was an SUV. So it's not Cory's blood, according to the men who were actually there serving with him.
Yeah, and that's the thing about these stories is how do we know the truth of what happened? Because we've talked, Jill and Steve Baker have talked to a number of people who were there, and they're upset about hearing a congressman exaggerate his record for years with no consequence. So if you run a campaign ad and it says something very specific, like I was blown up twice overseas in Iraq, and then you weren't, that's a problem. In fact, in Florida, that could even be a felony. Stolen valor is an actual crime. So this is the kind of thing that's been circulating for a long time, but because of his vote, his mysterious vote, his puzzling, head-scratching vote to defend Ilhan Omar, rather than censure her and strip her of her committee assignments, for which, as we've reported here before, the Democrats took back their censure of Mills and what apparently looks like a quid pro quo. Because of that, she got mad, and she's actually looking into it, and she's highlighting this fact that this stuff has been buried for a long time. These guys have been mad for a long time. Until we published on it, no one on the right had published about it. But thank goodness she's picking up the torch
and
here.
It's only been a few days since this vote. And this story is incredibly complicated and difficult for some people to pick up and get all of the different nuances. But I will say Representative Mace seems to be catching on pretty quickly. Let's go ahead and go to full screen 4, where she wrote that, I swear, Cory Mills gets dumber with every statement he makes. It's almost like his brain short circuits when they call him out on his BS. This post doesn't say or prove anything. When it does, this is what he does. Blows hot air, hoping that no one will notice. And you're not allowed to question all of his many lies. Cory Mills vomits as much as complicated sounding non-grammatical jargon as he can get out. It doesn't make any sort of sense and shuts people down by trying to confuse them with the tidal wave of idiocy. Now, these were not two incidences. He was not blown up. And that statement is in regard to something that Cory Mills had posted on X himself, where he has a letter from a team leader out there in Dying Corps, and he was saying that Cory was a part of our group and basically talking to other members. This morning, after Cory Mills had posted this, of course, we're still in communication with everybody on the team. They're saying, you know what, basically what's happening here is when this person is trying to go out there and vouch for Cory, it's a military bond in that if our unit gets blown up, then we all do. That's how this was explained to myself this morning on behalf of the rest of the Dying Corps guys, because they don't want this to get exaggerated. They don't want injuries, though, also, if you're actually injured, to go unnoticed. So it's something that the military community, I'm told, just, they want to stick up for their guys. Yeah, exactly. And of course they do. But as she's saying, there were not two incidents and you were not blown up. So what are we talking about here? Why have we been telling this story the way we have for many years? And this is just one of the stolen valor stories, right? And there's a whole lot more other stories that are even more alarming, things we published, other issues to talk about with the congressman. This is just one of the stolen valor stories where he keeps on repeating this thing about being blown up twice and ran on it and told everyone in the world it, along with a number of other facts that also happen to be untrue or at least highly questionable. Yeah, I feel like when we look at like the whole Cory Mills story, right? Like there's the married by the radical mufti over here, there's the stolen valor over there, there's the women over there. These stories keep going on and on. And this is like one of the sub headlines underneath one of the three main pillars about his life. She's also going after him because he, back in the day, was claiming he's a ranger and he wasn't a ranger. Her father is a ranger. That means himself. A lot to the congresswoman because her father was a ranger. So she didn't like that. And then, of course, the irony in all of this is that the guy is saying that he's citing Charlie Kirk to say this free speech is the reason why we don't want to strip Ilhan Omar of her committee assignments because of the terrible things she said. It's a free speech issue. And at the same time, he's shut down free speech in his own comments in his social media because he does not want to hear anymore from all the people clamoring about this. They're all yelling at him about this, saying, what the hell is going on here? Who are you? And he doesn't want to hear it at all. You can all talk. It's all good. It's all free speech until you shut off your comments on social media. And by the way, those have been off since February, the February 19th alleged assault incident at his DC penthouse. That is when the congressman had to shut the comments off. There was a brief period of time where he tried to turn them back on. That didn't go well, so they're back off. And look, the problem here is I'm enough with the clowning around. It's just the clownish behavior is ridiculous. Yeah, I don't want to talk about this any more than anyone else does. But just get rid of this guy. The GOP has to just say we're done here. We're going to put someone else to the primary. This is ridiculous. There's a whole lot going on here that should be investigated by the authorities. But we can't have this guy remaining as a congressman anymore for the state of Florida. It is never boring with the Cory story. When we come back, we'll get your thoughts, your replies on it right after this. For the first time ever, we have an outsider with today's poll, but I feel like it was warranted. We are going back to Representative Nancy Mace, who wrote on X, a quick question. Should a member of Congress accused of stolen valor by soldiers who served with him be permitted to serve on the House Armed Services Committee? Now, seems like a very simple question, doesn't it? The poll results are very telling. 94% of people say no, yes, and unsure, barely registered. But Matt, it looks like the people have spoken. I think the people are very clear about this. They don't like stolen valor stories, and they don't like voting with Ilhan Omar, and they don't like a number of other things that we've talked about in relation to the congressman. Now, I don't like stolen valor either. And when we were talking about this with Tim Walz on the show, we were taking it very seriously. We were going to take it just as seriously, even if they have an R next to their name. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of thing that, I think most people feel the same way right now. We care about this movement, our movement. We care about MAGA Maha cleaning its own house and actually doing the job. And we just, it's like we were saying earlier about possibly Bondi and Cash. If there's problems, we don't have time for the problems right now. We just need to get stuff done. So we don't need this nonsense.
We want some solutions. Let's go ahead and get to some of your replies. And Morgan starts us off saying that Cory conflates his time making money as private military contractors as part of his military service. Sadly, he lies about both. Well, we have documented as much here at Blaze Media.
Yeah, there'll probably be more coming out about this tomorrow, we hope, at Blaze News on the website about other stolen valor stories.
And Heretic Dave wrote, not just no, but HE double hockey sticks. No. The lack of integrity that demonstrates this is beyond the pale, even for the low, low, low bar of integrity already in place for getting elected in the first place. I very much appreciate that answer. HE double hockey sticks. No.
I like HE double hockey sticks. I mean, we don't have time for it. Like, we have a lot of things that we need to do. We have a lot of things that we need to do in a very short period of time. And we need fighters who are going to get in there and do the job for the right reasons. We got to get rid of all the grift on our side. We got to get rid of all the kind of fake leadership on our side and the people who are just get up in front of the cameras and tell you what you want to hear. We need people who actually do things and get things done. That's as simple as that.
It's very simple. We're not asking for a lot over here. DS goes ahead and rounds out the replies saying, so many in Congress and the Senate are pretenders. And that is absolutely true. And Matt, I want to just, with the time that we have, bring it back to, we want to actually get things done, right? And bring it back to Charlie and the memorial. And we saw that in 31 years on this earth, one man was able to make a very big impact on people's lives. And it's not just about Charlie in his life, but it was about going through, and not just for the conservative cause, but also we saw so much of the gospel yesterday. And that is really, right, if we can have anything that we're going back to, the truth matters.
Yes, and he was just an inspiration because he was able to put all those things together in his life, right? I mean, he was doing these things for God, family, and country, and all those things worked in harmony because he was working for the right reasons. And that's the biggest thing. I mean, the first thing that I have to know about someone is why are they doing what they're doing, right? And there's a lot of fakers on TV, right? People can go on camera and any actor can pretend they're this person and that person. And how do you know? You don't know if you're sitting at home. But what we knew about Charlie was that he is actually doing things for the right reasons, and that drove him to succeed, to success that most people will never achieve in 31 short years on this earth. And that is also why this is a time after his death, after this memorial service, where you have to look around the room and say, wait a minute, we don't have time for a lot of these losers. We if you want to win, get in. You want to do things, get in the car, let's go. But otherwise, we really need you to sit this one out.
Yeah, I'm a very bad actor. I've been told that I should actually not let people know what I'm feeling all the time. But guess what? If you see it, you're going to know. I can't act. It's just the way that it is. And you know what? I think maybe kind of refreshing.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. You should know that. Jill's not acting.
I cannot act. It is not in my DNA. So if I say it on here, no, I believe it. That's the fun fact of the day. That's how we're going to round out the show. I don't know. How are you? Are you a good actor?
I can do a little bit, but I can do a little bit of a poker face sometimes, but I'm not the best actor now.
Let's be real out there, people. Let's keep being real. That's going to do it for us. We'll see you back here tomorrow.